Bioshock 2's story is currently not over. Another was taking place as you took the role of Delta. Here we are going to look at another Big Daddy, Project Sigma, as they journey through Rapture's beating heart of technology, Minerva's Den. As you know, I have already made a video on the main game, so covering gameplay aspects, graphics will be quite minimal. There are a few differences and the story is actually one of my favourites, so I hope you can enjoy it too. Of course, there will be spoilers and all I can do is welcome you back to Rapture.
Subject Sigma is approaching Minerva's den. He must not reach the Thinker. Detonate the tunnel!
What you just saw there was Project Sigma on their way towards Minerva's Den. However, someone called Reed Wall clearly doesn't want you getting here and detonates the tunnel. While recovering and making our way towards Minerva's Den, we receive a transmission from Carl Porter. He is working with Tenenbaum and we have to get something called the Thinker out of Rapture. I'll expand more on this in a bit. From first entering, we can clearly see that something isn't right. We are swarmed with splicers and there are writings everywhere, including one saying property of Reed Wall. So let's talk about him. Reed Wall founded Rapture Central Computing along with Carl Porter, the one that gave us the transmission. However, he got corrupt and pushed Carl away, eventually taking over and making it completely overrun with his splicers. However, as we journey more, Reed tells us a different story. The Thinker that was mentioned earlier is a supercomputer that they both built. It runs off of complex equations, making it accurate in predicting incredible things. However, Reed says Carl was wasting time using it by using it to predict the outcome of different sports games, but even giving it recordings of his wife to replicate. Now, Porter and Wall have always had a conflict over the use of the Thinker, and Wall decided to frame Porter and say he was working with Fontaine, as this was just before the Rapture Civil War broke out between Ryan and Fontaine, leading up to the first game. This led to Ryan arresting Porter and sending him to Persephone, where then Wall took full control and of course slowly went insane due to Adam use, as always.
Mr. Ryan hired me to build a computer that could keep an entire city running on time. The Rapture Operational Data Interpreter Network. Folks call it the Thinker for short. We've harnessed the power of Adam even in this, allowing the mainframe to process data at the speed of thought. In other words, it thinks for us. Yes. And with the completion of the independent reasoning processor, it may finally think for itself. If Turing could see me now.
We also find this brand new laser gun. Now, who doesn't love that? And to be honest, I think it is the best weapon. Now we need to head up to Carl's office to retrieve a punch card allowing us to access the computer's core. Now, if none of you know what this is or are too young, I'm too young, but I'm just a nerd. It's a sheet with holes in it And that's what some of the very first computers used to read to carry out the basic operations. It's quite cool. This isn't a computer science lecture, and I will stop here. We also find ourselves with a hack tool, which allows us to get into Carl's office. We find the hidden punch card, and Wall sends his splicers to try and kill us and get it back. However, it is no trouble for us. When leaving, we come across a brand new Big Daddy, the Lancer. Now, this Big Daddy uses the laser that we just got, and I really like the Lancer, and it looks really cool too. It's like it's not modernized to fit the style of Rapture, but it already, like, it feels kind of retro, you know? Like, I don't know how to explain it. Now, going around the different sections of Minerva's den is really, really interesting to see. Of course, everything is battered and beaten, but it really gives an insight onto how everything was working. One place we come across is the robotics section, where they were developing some eerily creepy robotic little sisters. Now, if they had managed to get this working, they could have actually saved so many lives, but as you can hear from this audio diary, they came across quite a few problems.
Robotic little sisters. Robotic little sisters. Sure, Mr. Ryan, we'll take that contract. Sure, yeah, we'll front all the R&D costs, no problem. And when the big daddies ignore the little robot girls and all your fancy field tests? Hell, what are we gonna do with all the full production run of these useless things?
Now, remember how Reed mentioned Carl had been feeding the Thinker recordings of his wife? We now get a glimpse into that from finding 2 audio diaries.
The Thinker's independent reasoning processor has been running for several months now. Standardized intelligence test scores continue to rise, beginning daily voice synthesis test. Good morning, Thinker. How are you?
Acceptable. Request to continue most recent conversation topic. Pearl Porter.
Oh, my late wife. Yes, I'd love to tell you all about her. I have a number of old audio recordings we made together that you could listen to, if you'd like.
Acceptable. Begin input of data regarding Pearl Porter.
You took the words right out of my mouth, friend.
Now, the creepy sounding replication of Pearl.
Continuing input of audio data into the Thinker's database. Subject, Pearl Porter.
Closer now into the recorder.
I don't know what to say, Milton. This is Mrs. Pearl Porter speaking.
That's the way.
And I'm recording this message with my brilliant husband, whom I love very much. And, I am so looking forward to seeing London.
That wasn't so hard, now was it? Won't you be glad that we have these to listen to when we're old and gray?
To me, this feels really weird, especially in terms of now, considering the rise of AI voice models and all that. Back then, when they were making this game, they probably didn't think about this at all. But now it just feels a little different and a little creepy. We can now head on to Operation. This is the place where engineers worked on the creations and programming for all the computing devices and where the processing for the city happened. Entering Operations, Wall once again sends his splicers and fails to get rid of us. Carl then tells us of a bathysphere containing a signal beacon. This will allow us to get to Wall's office and reprogram it into a signal jammer. This is important as to when we escape at the end, Lamb's torpedoes that she installed to stop anyone from leaving Rapture won't be able to detect Carl's bathysphere. We're able to go outside and easily retrieve the beacon. Heading into Wall's office, we can see the madness that has taken over him, equations and messages scribbled all along the floor. We're able to find the code to access his secret area, where we can then reprogram the beacon to the signal jammer. We head towards the core, but there is a huge problem. Wall's people have messed with the climate control, and access to the core is now completely frozen. we need to enter climate control to reset the Thinker's cooling system ourselves. This bit is quite cool because now instead of seeing Houdini splicers utilizing Incinerate, they're actually using Winter Blast instead, which gives a brand new challenge, and you'll also come across multiple frozen statues which can be enemies hiding, which give you a quite good surprise. Also in climate control, we can come across another audio diary showcasing the Thinker and Pearl.
Continuing input of audio data into the Thinker's database. Subject: Pearl Porter.
Okay, Milton. I'm recording this on the 6th straight day since you were home last. I know your work is important to the war effort, but you're not even allowed to tell me what you're working on, and that's so frustrating. London is a beautiful city, but it isn't home. I hope I'll see you soon, Milton.
Ending input.
We flip the override switch and Wolf throws almost everything he has at us, bringing back the Alpha Series Big Daddy enemies as well. But once again, the grenade launcher is our best friend. We now enter the core for our final fight and to escape. We enter through the vents where Wall can't get to us. Then we come to a dark room, again scribbled to the brim with equations, but with a diagram on the floor, showing a cycle between Sigma, Porter, and Thinker. However, there is also an audio diary in the middle.
Well, Thinker, Ryan's secret police are on their way. They cooked up some kind of evidence against me. Treason, they say. I've heard what happens to folks who get disappeared, come back as one of those metal daddies. So, I'm leaving you with something to cogitate on in my absence. Inputting Rapture Departure Protocol. Figure a way to get yourself out of this city, Thinker. You've got to live on, no matter what happens to me. You'll find a way.
These were unfortunately Carl's last moments he had before having to hide from Ryan. We go upstairs and enter the punch card from Carl's office. However, Wall gets in our way one last time and shuts down the Thinker before it can take in the punch card. We then receive a transmission from Tenenbaum telling us that without power to the Thinker, everything is falling apart, nothing is regulated, and soon we'll be in trouble. Our job now is to defeat Wall, and to be honest, he actually felt like a really tough fight, mostly because of the amount of health he has and some resistance to a lot of things. But it is done, we bring back the power, and we insert the punch card.
Mainframe reactivated. Confirming user's genetic identity. Genetic identity confirmed. Alpha Series. Subject Sigma. Former identity. Charles Milton Porter.
Welcome back, Milton.
System ending personality duplication. Subject Charles Milton Porter.
You see now why I let the machine speak for you, Mr. Porter. We needed a voice that would be familiar, comforting, your own. With that copy of the Thinker's programming, we may return to the surface and use it to restore you to the man you once were. Please, collect the printout and meet me at your bathysphere dock. Take your time, Mr. Porter. I will be waiting.
You see, the Porter we were talking to was the Thinker, duplicating his voice like we saw Carl do with his wife Pearl. And we were Porter the whole time. Of course, he was right in his final audio diary. His fate was to become a Big Daddy, and it is devastating. Taking time to reflect, we head down into Carl's private area, where we come across the final diary of Pearl's recreation.
I believe I'm done feeding audio recordings and personal anecdotes to the Thinker. I am set to test the personality duplication function. Target personality, Pearl Porter. Thinker, are you ready?
Yes, Milton.
Starting test. Hello, Pearl.
Hello, Milton.
How... How have you been?
Just wonderful, Milton. I've missed you, though. It's been so long.
Pearl, No. No, this isn't right. It isn't her. Thinker, stop the test.
But what's the matter, Milton?
Oh, God.
Don't you still love me?
Oh, God, Oh, God, I said end function, Thinker. Now! It's over.
He couldn't bear to hear his wife again and completely regretted it. We then find sort of a memorial to his wife and the memories start to come back. We see pictures of the two together, married, with such a happy life. Then reports of bombs from the war and a letter saying about Pearl's death. This truly is one of the most hard-hitting moments throughout the whole Bioshock story, where Jack lived a happy life saving the sisters, Delta's memories forever with Eleanor. Now Carl, left with nothing, forced to become a big daddy, losing his life's work and losing his wife. There's not much he can look onto now. Tenenbaum says the Thinker was always looking out for Carl and wanted him to keep going. We meet Tenenbaum in the bathysphere and there is a slight glimmer of hope.
I lived through the Blitz, Pearl, and the fall of Rapture. They took my memory, my voice, everything that made me a man, but nothing ever scared me so much as saying goodbye. I wanted to save you. I couldn't resist trying to bring you back the only way I knew how. But you didn't want that. I know it now, and I think I'm finally ready to let you go your way. I stand here with the sun on my face, and it's almost like I can feel you smiling. Goodbye, Pearl. I love you more than I've got words for. Milton.
There you saw Carl recovering from becoming a big daddy and being able to visit the grave of Pearl and finally saying goodbye. He's now able to live the rest of his life, free from terror. But did he really get a happy ending? I feel like this ending just hit me so hard. As I said before, compared to the other endings we've seen so far, this is the most devastating. There really wasn't anything good to come out of this at all. Yeah, he managed to survive, but at what cost? So much of this was out of his control. Overall, the journey through Minerva's den was a good one. Seeing a brand new area and more inner workings and lost concepts such as the robots. It was nice being able to take on this new perspective, but I really just wish it was just that tiny bit longer. Now, most of the time is taken up by exploring all of the different sectors in each area and discovering new things, which makes it really interesting, but it just feels like it finishes too soon. But other than that, I would say this is definitely my favourite story that we've seen so far. As I said at the beginning, I have already technically reviewed most of the stuff, since it is a Bioshock 2 DLC, so I'll focus on the new things that have been featured. First of all is the plasmid lineup. Part of progressing, we need to find a plasmid called Gravity Well. This creates a ball of gravity basically pulling in everything around it and then exploding, causing damage. This was super useful if you wanted to gather loads of items together, but I always find myself defaulting to the basic plasmid out of habit when it came to combat, and I really wish I tried it out more against enemies. Next are the weapons. These are pretty much the same once again, however the machine gun is now replaced with the ion laser, which I actually prefer a lot. The iron laser can prove to be so powerful, especially with it being a stream of light. It is very hard to miss your enemies. It also has a special ammo which allows you to charge up a shot, which is incredibly useful for me when fighting the brute splicers, as it was able to down them in one hit most of the time. Other than that, you still have your drill, hack tool, rivet, spear, shotgun, and launcher. Lastly, there are a few new enemies around Minerva's Den, which include new security bots, fiery brute splicers, and of course the wintry Houdini splicers. The new security bots are actually pretty cool. Now, instead of having a gun, there are 3 different types: rocket, laser, and electric, which, to be honest, I find much more effective. There are a lot of times where the electric provided useful for staggering enemies when fighting, and I think the rocket and the laser explain themselves and just do the job right. Fiery brute splicers are so much more powerful, and I found mostly because, well, I can't set them on fire. They are completely immune to incinerate. So that takes me back to using the ion laser and delivering this huge burst of damage to get them out easy. Because I was so used to using incinerate, I had to think of a new strategy to defeat them. Lastly, of course, are the wintry Houdini splicers, which I've mentioned a bit already. Compared to the normal ones, I think they have a slightly higher health, but they were super simple to go and defeat. Overall, this allowed an opening for new challenges and actually makes you think about switching up your plasmid use towards the different enemies, and I really like that. It gives you a new, different experience and not something you've been repeating constantly throughout the main game. Now, I was going to mention sound in this DLC, but there really isn't much to it. The soundtrack, especially at the end, is awesome, but throughout the game, I didn't really pick on anything memorable like in the first 2 games. When it comes to design, I love it. Firstly, from the outside of the den, the bright and yellow green sign is so lovely and fits well into the atmosphere of being in the ocean. Going inside, you can see these metallic copper walls, kind of like how we saw in Hephaestus, the main core of Rapture in the first game, showing this as an important area of Rapture. Each section is also dimly lit and mixed in with the light from the blues of the ocean around it, and I really like it. Going into operations, we can see the massive sign welcoming us with the lights going round. I don't know what kind of style it is, but I really think it looks good. It fits perfectly with the surrounding. It's kind of more futuristic, bringing in that atmosphere into Rapture, where in the previous games and the main story for Bioshock 2, we've only seen things really destroyed. We don't really see all this technical side to it. Going into the core, the bright orange lights really emphasizing the thinker's presence. I think it's just a super important part of design, and it really makes it stand out, showing it as the most important thing in Rapture. Not Andrew Ryan, not Lamb, not Fontaine, but this massive computer which is debating and creating all these predictions. It essentially is the beating heart of Rapture. To me, Minerva's Den gives us some of the best environments so far, along with Fort Frolic and Siren Alley. This is why I mostly wish it was a little longer. The last area, there wasn't much to explore. It was just going straight through the vents to the Thinker, and I really wish we could see just a tiny bit more, and it just would have been perfect. So, that is really all I have to say about Minerva's Den. I know it's short compared to the previous videos, but I really wanted to separate this away from the main game, as I feel like trying to mix it in with what is already a long video, it wouldn't stand out as much. Minerva's Den is probably my favourite narrative out of the first and second game, and it's something a lot of people miss out on before going straight to Infinite. Showing light on this incredibly devastating story of a person we never would have thought would be important to Rapture, because like the others, so many people are forgotten. This really emphasizes the destruction to people Rapture has caused, and it gives you that final thought at the end. Why did Rapture have to do this? What caused all these people to be like this, and why did it have to end like this? I really want to make a few videos on the people that have been forgotten through Rapture, as we hear a lot of stories through multiple audio logs, and there is a lot of removed ones as well, giving us a bit more lore onto the story. If you would like to see that kind of thing, please do let me know, because the story of Rapture is not over just yet. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it was just a little bit shorter. But now, next on the list, it leaves the final game, of course, Bioshock Infinite. And I'm so excited to cover its main story and DLC, as it is so big, and I personally think it's one of my favorites. And I still don't know how many videos it will take, but of course I will always keep you updated, and I hope you can stay along to finish the journey. Of course, I have my other channel too, where I play games mostly on my Wii, and if you enjoy that kind of stuff, you can go check it out. And I also have social media as well, where I get up to some other stuff. So I guess that leaves it for today, and all I can say is that's what I think about Bioshock 2's Minerva's Den, and I'll see you soon.